Welcome everyone to this special segment that we call For the Shabbos Table, Parshas Vayaitzay edition, made possible by a grant by the Rubin family for their Gesund, Parnasa, Nachas, and a special request from the Eibishter that they should be Zeicher to a Ben Zacher. We thank them for their kindness, and may Hashem be mamali all their requests for the good. And we know this week's Parsha, we have the famous vision of Yaakov Avinu, Vayachaloim v'neisu lemutzav arza. There was a ladder starting from the ground, v'nei malachi elikim oilim v'yardim bay, and angels of Hashem were going up and coming down. And the famous question, which everybody knows, is since angels, malachim, originate in heaven, so they first have to come down. So it should say malachi elikim yardim va'olim. Why does it say olim v'yardim? Rashi says that the malachim that were escorting Yaakov from Eretz Yisrael, they went up, and the malachim of Chutz La'aretz came down. There is another question, and that is why the malachim need a ladder. It's like you're going into a store and you see malachim using the escalator. You know, they could fly. They don't need to use a ladder. They have wings. So why do the malachim need a ladder? That's also a big question. So we know that the Mishnah Sarash tells us that at the time of the flood, it says, "Vayavo b'nei Elikim." The b'nei Elikim came to the b'nei Sa'adam, ki toiva yiseina. And it says that there were malachim. It says toivais. The Medrash says it's written without a vav, without a second vav, so that it means one. And he says there was a especially beautiful Nara Besula, and she was a tzedekes. She was propositioned by the malachim for sin, and she told them that she's only going to submit if they let her try their wings. So the malachim gave her the wings, and she immediately flew up and escaped, went to heaven, went to the Kisei HaKavod, and the Rebbeinu Shalom fixed her in the Mazalos, and she's the Mazel Besula in the zodiac. And these malachim were left down here without wings. And they tried to climb up on the ladder that they saw in the dream, and they were rejected, so they came back down. And that's the malachi elikim oilim b'yardimai. That's why they needed a ladder, because they didn't have wings. And there's another version in the Dazakain and Bali Taisvis that when one of the malachim by Avram, they said, by Sdai mashchisim anachnu, we're destroying, we are destroying. And they were criticized. What do you mean you're destroying? You're not doing anything. It's the Eibishter. What's the lashon of mashchisim anachnu? That we are destroying, and because of that their wings were clipped, and when their wings were clipped they couldn't fly, and they saw the ladder and they tried to climb up the ladder, they were rejected, and they were sent back down. So that's one of the mahalchim, two mahalchim, in explaining why it says oilim first, they tried to get back up, and v'yardim, and why they needed a ladder. Reb Chaim Berlin, Zech Tzadik L'Bracha, Schutz Yogan Aleinu, and Rav Gestetner, both independently gave the same very interesting example. And that is, in the dream, it says that Hashem, Mutzav Arza, that Hashem was at the foot of the ladder with Yaakov. It's interesting, there's a famous give and take between the Imrei Emes and his young son, the Pnei Menachem, the future Ger Rebbe. The Imrei Emes asked his son that when Yaakov saw the dream and he saw the ladder, V'roisha Magia Hashemayma, why didn't Yaakov in the dream climb up the ladder to go to heaven? So the Pnei Menachem answered, well, it's simple, Tati. It says the Rabbeinu Shalom was down in the ground with Yaakov. Why should he go up if the Rabbeinu Shalom was there? So the Reb Chaim Berlin and Reb Gestetner said that aliyah in life is relative. Like, for example, where's the most chashuva place in the Beis HaKnesset? So you'll say the Mizrach Vant. But in Torah V'das, Rav Pam sat by the bima. So if Rav Pam sat by the bima, so then the most chashuva place is by where Rav Pam is sitting. Right? It's all relative. So since the Rabbeinu Shalom was down by Yaakov, so then the malachim that were coming down were really going up, because they were going to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Wherever you go to the Rabbeinu Shalom, that's an aliyah. So Einachanami, when it says the malachi elikim oilim, it meant the malachim first came down from Shemayim. But they're called oilim because since the Rabbeinu Shalom is on the bottom, their coming down is considered an aliyah. And those that went up, that's a yerida because they're going away from the Rabbeinu Shalom. Of course, this lesson of relativity is very important in Yiddishkeit. Because, sometimes leaving the Beis HaMedrash could be an aliyah. So you'll say, what do you mean? Going away from learning Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, how could that be an aliyah? Well, your wife isn't feeling well and she needs your help. It's a mitzvah she'eni yochel asas hayidei acherim. So then leaving the Beis HaMedrash is an aliyah. It's all relative, and people have to know that. People that have tunnel vision and only can see one way, they don't realize that in life, sometimes what we consider a yerida is really an aliyah. That's a very important lesson. It's interesting that the Zohar also asks this question, and the Zohar says that the ladder was all about tefillah. Sulam is b'gematria koil, and Yaakov's dream of a ladder was, what's a ladder? A ladder is the weight. If you have an attic, you need to have a ladder that pulls down in order to climb up to the attic. A ladder is the way to get from one place to the other. So the way to connect with heaven, that's the vision of the ladder. How do you connect with heaven? And the Zohar says the way to connect with heaven is sulam, is through kol, is through tefillah. And the Zohar says the malachi elikim oilim, why it says oilim first, is when we daven, we create malachim that bring up our tefillah. And then the malachim that are yordim are those angels that are sent down to fulfill our requests. Now, this is a very important lesson because it shows how vital is tefillah in a person's avodah. You see, our job in life is to connect with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Hashem shoyel me'imach kiyim liyira, that you should be aware of Hashem, what we call to be a davak in the Eibishter, dvekis. And the most direct way to be davak to the Rebbeinu Shalom is to take those 3 steps forward and talk to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's why there's a Gemara in Brachos. It's a really impactful Gemara that says, Gadayla tefillah yosim amaisim tovim. That prayer is greater than good deeds. The Gemara learns that out because of all the things that Moshe Rabbeinu used to come into Eretz Yisrael. It was v'eschanan el Hashem. He davened. I mean, he did a lot of things. He took him out of Mitzrayim, but Gedayla Tefillah. Now, how could Tefillah be better than good deeds? How could Tefillah be better than Bikur Chaylim? Or Levayis Sameis, or Achnosas Kala? How can you compare apples and oranges? And the answer is because we could do other mitzvahs with ulterior motives. But when we're davening, the essence of davening is to talk to Hashem, to connect with Hashem. Ma Hashem alikecha shayim li'ima, kiyam li'yereishis chachma, yiras Hashem. That's how great this message is. It's a very vital message. Blesadin Babasecha says that, let's notice another diak. Hinei malache Elokim oilim v'yardim bay. Elokim is midas adin. And he says that the malachi Elokim oilim v'yardim bay represents, we know that the Satan goes up and prosecutes, and then comes down and carries out sentence. And that's the vision of Hinei Malachi Elokim Oilim V'Yardim, but that's why they start by going up, because the Satan goes and prosecutes and then comes down, Chas V'Shalom, Lo Yaleinu, and carries out the punishment. And that's the Malachi Elokim, the Midas Adin. Now on the other hand, the Toldos Yitzchak says that it also symbolizes when we do a mitzvah. And when we do a mitzvah, the Mishnah says, "Oisa mitzvah achas, kind of like praklit echad." We know that when we do a mitzvah, we create a malach, and the malach goes up and reports our mitzvah, and then comes down and carries out the reward. And that's also symbolized in the Hinei Malachi Elokim Oilim V'Yardim Bay. Now it says, "Vayiketz Yaakov Mishnasai." Yaakov woke up from his sleep. That's the simple lesson, that he woke up from his sleep. But the Medrash says, "Amar Rab Yochanan mim mishnasai." He got up from learning. Now, this, of course, is prompted by the simple diak, that if it just meant that he got up, it should have just said, "Vayiketz Yaakov." When it says Mishnasai, it's coming to say that he was learning. Now, I always said, tongue-in-cheek, that how do you have a dream with a vision of Hashem and angels? Simple. Just don't sleep for 14 years like Yaakov did in Shem Ve'ever. When you go to sleep after not sleeping for 14 years, you'll have such a dream. But the Nachlas David says that's actually the pshat, that Rabbi Yochanan is saying that what prompted a vision of the Shekhinah is the fact that before Yaakov went to sleep, he was immersed in learning. And when you immerse yourself in learning, so that's a Chazal. The Chazal says, to quote it directly, Tani Reb Chia, Kala Isaac B'Torah B'Layla Shechina Kenegdai. And therefore, when a person immerses themselves in thoughts of learning before they go to sleep, that promises that Al Yavaluni Chalom Misram, that a person shouldn't be troubled with bad dreams, etc. Yaakov says, Ein Zekiyim Beis Elikim V'Zeh Sha'ar Hashemayim. I'm going to discuss with you a story. It's a story that makes us feel very small. It's a story that shows what kind of high bar of righteousness and purity existed in the days gone by. And it's important to hear such stories because it at least gives us something to shoot for. Although it's way beyond our level, Rashi over here tells us that Hashem said, Tzadik zeh bo lebeis Malayni, this righteous person, Yaakov, comes to my inn, to this holy place, v'yifter b'loylina, I should send him away without letting him lodge. In other words, he comes to my hotel, I shouldn't give him a room. So with this in mind, fasten your seatbelts. The Mesikas HaTorah brings down this story. It's about the guy Reb Mendel Desher, Reb Mendel Desher was a Talmid Chaviv of the Chassam Sofer, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Bracha, Schusi Yagim Aleinu. He was the only son of Rabbi Yechezkel Panet, who was the Baal Mari Yechezkel. When he was in yeshiva for a while, he told his Rebbe, the Chassam Sofer, that he wants to go home to visit his parents. Who knows, maybe he wasn't home for a year. So he wants to go home to visit his righteous parents and to be Mekayim Kibbut of Aim. So the Chassam Sofer said, on the way home, you pass the Stott of Il in Ungarn. It's kedai to stop there because the Rav over there is an Oisnam, is a very holy man, that's the Yismach Moshe, and you should visit him. It would be a good thing. So, of course, he listened to his Rebbe, and Mendel stopped in Il, and the Yismach Moshe wasn't available to meet him yet. He was a very, very busy man with a lot of shilas. The Rav Teitelbaum was a Goy Olam, so he had to stay in the city. So he went to the market to buy himself a melon. So there were stalls. So he stopped by a stall. It was run by a Yiddish girl. And he asked, how much is a melon? And she told him a price. He thought it was too much. So he was about to move away when the girl said to him, Tzadik zeh ba lebeis melona v'yifter b'loi melon? No, it's a play on words. She says, this tzaddik comes to my place of melons and leaves without a melon. And he was taken by the sharp play on Rashi that this Bas Yisrael did, and he took a look at her. And after he came home, he was just a little bit past 20 and unmarried, and it gave him tremendous tsar that he took a look at a girl. He never did that in his life. And he started crying. And the host that he was staying by heard through the wall that he was crying. He was crying a lot. And he asked him, why are you crying? So he told him the truth. I was there. A girl made a witty comment, and I looked at her, and I never looked at a girl before. It bothers me that I looked at a girl unnecessarily. So the man told him, well, maybe it's a sign from Shemayim. You're not allowed to marry a girl without looking at her. So the Kaddish is the Isha without looking at her. So maybe she's your shidduch. Maybe if you marry her, then that's the reason you looked at her. So Reb Mendel Desher, that made sense to him. So he said, you know what? I'm here in the town to speak to the Yismach Moshe. I'll ask him. So he met with the Yismach Moshe, and the Yismach Moshe said it's a good svara, but you're the son of the Mar Yechezkel and Rebbetzin, very chashuv people, you should talk to your parents. So he sent quickly a telegram to his parents. The parents heard it, and they came quickly to the city. And the mother checked up on the girl, and she wasn't they were a very miyuchastika family, and she wasn't a miyuchas. So they went into the Yismach Moshe, and the mother spoke outright. She said, we're a family of great yichas, and this girl has no yichas whatsoever. I don't think it's sugapas. So the Yismach Moshe said, yichas atzmai is the most important thing. If the girl is worthy, and she's a tznuah, and a balas midas, the fact that she's not a miyuchas, that's not ma'akiv. He said, why don't you check it out? So the mother went and met with the girl and found out about the family. And she came back and she started crying. She said the girl seems to be a Baal Midas Taivas, good traits, and a fine person, but she's not pretty at all. They used the Lashon B'chu Eres. She's ugly. And she started crying. So the Yismach Moshe said to Rav Mendel Desher, look, it's normal for a mama to feel that way. So Rav Mendel started crying, aber was is mit the kick? Was is mit the kick? Which means, what's with the look? How am I going to solve the fact that I looked at her needlessly? So when the Yitzmak Moshe heard that, he took the parents aside and he said, I think that this is a shidduch bin shemayim. Your son is motivated by very holy reasons, and I give you haftacha that if he marries her, you'll have generations that are all very, very beautiful. And they were maskim, he married her, and they had very beautiful generations. Now this story, he was worried about an inadvertent, harmless look. We think about people who look around in the streets at pictures, at billboards, they're on the computer at work, and they see what's on the sides of the computer. They scroll on their phones, and they see all kinds of things. And here, he married a girl because of one inadvertent kick. One inadvertent look. I mentioned this before in passing, that I learned Chok. My Chok Shiurim are available on TorahAnytime.com, on Kol Lashon. We have the entire Bereshis and the entire Shmois, so far up to Yisro. We have part of a Yikra and part of a Bamidbar. So in the Chok, in Yisro, day 3, the Musar part, which is the 7th part of the Chok, the Musar says something here raising, that a person who lets their eyes have free rein at looking at other women without any attempt of inhibition will have to come back as a gilgal of a bird by the name of Ra'ah. And that's what it's hinted to in Kriyashman, the 3rd parsha, L'Yisasuru achrei levavchem achrei einechem. You shouldn't go after your heart and your eyes, asher atem zonin achreim. Because if not, you'll have to be zonin, you'll have to come back as this bird, Ra'ah, Reish Aleph Hey, which feasts on his eyes, achreim, afterwards, in another gilgal. It's a very frightening thing. And more, less esoteric, the Chofetz Chaim said that a person that doesn't put a control, a shmir on their anayim, will have a blemish in their eyes in the next world always. A terrible fate. So it's something we really need to work on. Vayelech Harana, and Yaakov went towards Haran. So the Medrash says that after Eliphaz came, Esav said to Eliphaz to kill Yaakov, and he encountered Yaakov, and because he was all armed and ready to kill Yaakov, and because it says he grew up on the lap of Yitzchak, he wasn't able to do it. Yaakov told him, listen, take all my possessions, even my clothing, I'll jump in the water, and ani chashiv kamei, so you could tell your father you fulfilled the mission. So after that, as he was heading to get married, he said, how am I going to get married? Eliezer came with kol tov adainav biyadai. That's how he got Rivka. But how am I now penniless, dealing with love, and how am I going to get married? So it says in the Medrash, he said, Shila malo isesa einai Eloharim. May ayin yava yezri. Haharim is, it says, it's actually the Targum that says to my teachers and my parents. He looked up and he said, what's going to be? May ayin, I have nothing. May ayin yava yezri. Ezer is the Ezer Kenegdai. And then he said, what am I worried about? Ezri miyam Hashem, oseh shamayim v'aretz. Now it doesn't say osa, that Hashem made heaven and earth, oseh. Because what does Hashem do? He's mezavik zivugim. That's why this kapitel is a very big skula to daven to get a shidduch. Now, me'ayin yava yezri is brought down that if a person makes himself like ayin, like nothing. If a person treats himself like ayin, like nothing, then he has a chance to get a shidduch. But if a person treats himself like something very special, then nobody will be good enough for him. And when nobody is good enough for him, he's going to have a very hard time finding a shidduch. And that's why, if you think about it, Nadav and Avihu, they weren't married. It says that they wouldn't have died if they were married, because their wives would have saved them. They weren't married. It's brought down because they said, our father is Kohen Gadol, our uncle is Melech, who's good enough for us? If a person feels that, for me, then they can't get married because, the next one might be better. And if I settle for this, who knows what I'm missing out on? This is a very big problem today. They say, it says, Kasha zivugay shel adam ki kriyas yamsuf. The zivug of a person is hard like kriyas yamsuf. So one shot, they say, is a cube shot. We know that the waters didn't split until the Nachshon ben Aminadab, the Nasi of Yehuda, jumped in. And when the water reached his nose, then it split. Imagine if he was a foot taller. Then it would have took a longer time for the water to split. If a person's nose is high up there, then it's very hard for him to get married. Now also, it says, May ayin yavay ezri. May ayin is the same letters as may ani. And may ani means that you want to get a shidduch, that comes from ani. I had a very interesting episode I was giving in California, a talk to girls. And I said to them that if you want to, when you're looking, I said, in not so long a time, you're going to be looking for a young man. And one of the important things to look for is that he should be easygoing. So he said, but there's only one thing. The easygoing boys are looking for easygoing girls. So if you want to have that, you're going to have to be easygoing. And the boys with Simchas Achayim are looking for a girl with Simchas Achayim. So if you want to find a boy with Simchas Achayim, you have to have Simchas Achayim. And that's Me'ayin Yova Yezri. Me'ayin is Me'ani. Same letters. Me'ayin and Me'ani. It's the same letters. Yeah, it has to be from yourself. You have to make yourself worthy to get that shidduch. When my first Rebbitzin was going to chemo, I used to say Tillim with her. And we used to say this kapitel of Shir Lamalas. And I told her this pshat, which resonated with her, I remember very much. It says she had pancreatic cancer. Lo Yaleinu. And the Welt says there's no cure. So I said to her, it says, Shir Lamalas may ayin yova Ezri. From where is Ezri going to come? Ezri me'em Hashem oisei shemayim v'aretz. So what does that mean? Okay, Ezri me'em Hashem, but what does it have to do with shemayim v'aretz? The answer is, how did Hashem make shemayim v'aretz? He made it yesh me'ayin. He made it something from nothing. So here there's a makla that there's no cure, nothing. So may ayin yova Ezri? The answer is Ezri me'em Hashem oisei shemayim v'aretz. The Rebbeinu Shalom made shemayim v'aretz yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, could bring refuah, something from nothing. And that's why I remember Rabbi Reuven Feinstein said, you don't have to be mispal for a nace. You just daven it, boirei refuahs. That the Rebbeinu Shalom should make refuahs. New refuahs are coming out all the time. And therefore, anybody that's lo yaleinu sick, right? Rebbeinu Shalom made shemayim v'aretz, could make taka yesh me'ayin, even though there's no cure. We should be boirei refuahs. We should all not know from sickness, only good health. We want to thank the Rubin family for making this year possible. If you want to sponsor next week's share, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. The share is 360, and it's heard all over in 187 countries. If you would like to join the Daf Yomi, it's on zoomdaf.com, 8 p.m. every night. This Motzei Shabbos only, because I have a simcha. The share will be 8:30 p.m. on zoomdaf.com. Thank you for joining us, and have a good Shabbos.